Hello, my name is Kelsey Chapman and welcome to the very first episode of Becoming Home, a channel encompassing crafting, cooking, decor tips, organization tricks, and DIY projects. In this video, I'm excited to share my favorite potato casserole recipe. My childhood piano teacher shared this recipe with my mom, and I always remember her bringing this dish to various gatherings and potlucks. When my mom asked me what I wanted for my birthday dinner, this dish was usually on the list. Now that I have my own home, this casserole has become one of my Thanksgiving traditions and has also been a hit at my work potluck dinners. Without further ado, step into my humble kitchen and let's get cooking. First, grab 10 to 12 medium-sized russet or Idaho potatoes. Russets and Idahos are the potatoes with brown jackets rather than yellow or red. Give them a wash and poke them with a fork a couple of times. I'm not sure if this step is necessary, but I didn't want my potatoes exploding out of their skins. You'll also need 2 to 3 bay leaves. My husband thinks bay leaves are just for show and don't add any flavor. If that's the case, I really like the show. There's nothing I love more than adding bay leaves to a stew, or in this case, boiling them with my potatoes. To me, bay leaves somehow convey a richness and heartiness to my cooking. Cover your potatoes with cold water and put them on the stove to boil. Add a dash of salt, cover the pot, and leave them be. Next, we're going to grate our cheese. Now, of course, you're welcome to buy pre-shredded cheese. However, I think it sometimes has a tendency to be a little floury. Grating cheese was also one of my favorite childhood chores, which is one of the reasons I like to do it by hand. But really, it depends on whether the bag of shredded cheese or the block is on sale at the grocery store when I'm buying it. My recipe calls for a total of 2 cups of cheese. I think this is the minimum amount required. I mean, why skimp on cheese if you don't have to? I often use 2.5 to 3 cups of cheese. We're going to use 2 cups of cheese for the sauce, but the rest will be reserved for the topping. According to the recipe, the topping only calls for 1 cup. This is where I add an extra cup or so to my casserole. It gives more coverage and provides a delicious, golden and crispy topping to the dish. After grating the cheese, peel and finely dice 1 medium onion. It doesn't really matter if it's a yellow or white onion, just whatever you have on hand. If you have a mandolin in your kitchen, it can come in really handy for this step. Anytime I want to speed up the process or ensure my onions are evenly diced, I use my mandolin. It also tends to cut down on the crying involved. If you don't have a mandolin, just dice the onion as finely and evenly as you can. It's going in our sauce and we don't want huge chunks of onion floating around in there. As you can tell, the mandolin is not foolproof against tears. Set aside your diced onion in a bowl for later. We're going to assemble our topping next. This topping will go on our casserole towards the end of its baking time. We need 1 cup of cornflakes. Put them in a Ziploc bag and use a rolling pin or empty wine bottle, hey, I'm not judging, to crush the flakes. Next, add at least 1 cup of cheese. I later regretted not adding another cup because my topping was a little skimpy. Shake the crushed cornflakes and the cheese together and set the Ziploc bag aside. Periodically check on your potatoes. You need to cook them long enough that a fork easily pierces the skin, but not so long that they're falling apart. We want them intact enough to grate and not just crumble and turn into mashed potatoes. When they're ready, take them off the heat, drain the hot water and cover them with cold water to cool them down. While you wait for them to be cool enough to peel and grate, work on your sauce. Melt 1/4 cup of butter in a medium saucepan. Add your diced onion and saute for a couple of minutes. You don't want to brown the onions, but you do want to cook them until they're slightly soft. At this point, you'll probably want to start your oven preheating as well. It just depends how long it takes your oven to heat up. We'll bake our casserole at 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 180 degrees Celsius. To our onions, we'll add 1 8-ounce package of cream cheese, 1 can of condensed chicken soup, and 2 cups of cream. At this point, I blanked out on how much cream the recipe actually calls for. My mother emailed the recipe to me, and it just said 1 packet of cream, which is how we buy our cream in Zimbabwe. I couldn't remember if 1 packet of cream was 250 ml, which would be 1 cup, or 500 ml, which would be 2. Later you'll see me pause and think about that for a minute and add another cup of cream. I'm glad I did. The casserole was the perfect consistency and not too dry. Break the cream cheese up into smaller pieces so it melts into the sauce faster. If you wanted, you could cut the cream cheese into cubes before you add it to the pot. Let the liquid warm up until all the ingredients are incorporated. Stir the sauce every once in a while to distribute the heat and keep the bottom from burning. We're also going to add salt and pepper to taste. When I started cooking, I hated it when recipes said to taste. I much preferred cold, hard measurements. But as you get accustomed to being in the kitchen, you'll start cooking to taste even when the recipe calls for a certain amount of an ingredient. Here I added about a teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of pepper. And here's where you'll see me add that extra cup of cream. Without that extra cup, I don't think I would have had enough sauce to cover all my potatoes. Once your sauce is warm and bubbly, and the cream cheese is completely incorporated, add 2 cups of your grated cheese to the sauce. Stir in the cheese until it's melted, and keep stirring so that the cheese doesn't burn or become grainy. You don't want the mixture to become too hot because it will affect the consistency of your cheese sauce. Once the cheese is completely melted, remove the pot from the heat. Alternatively, turn the heat off and leave the pot on the burner to keep warm. Just make sure that it's not too hot. Now that our potatoes are cooled, we can peel them and grate them. Drain the water out of the pot. You'll also need a large bowl in which to assemble the casserole. Use your hands, not a peeler, to remove the skins from the potatoes. You'll want them cool enough to handle without burning yourself. However, the skins do come off easier if they have not completely cooled down. Don't worry if you end up removing some of the potato along with the jacket. You'll still have plenty of potato for your casserole. This can be a bit of a tedious process. It all depends on the individual potato whether its jacket comes off easily or not. I personally like the hands-on process of peeling the potatoes and find it very satisfying to strip them of their jackets. Once you've removed all the potato jackets, you can grate the potatoes. My potatoes probably sat in the water and continued to cook for too long. You'll be able to see that they're a little mushy. You really want them slightly more firm, which also makes them easier to grate. Grate all your potatoes and put them in your large bowl. Next, add your cheese sauce and mix everything together. I was a little stubborn at this point. That black plastic spoon was not heavy duty enough to handle the weight of the potatoes, and I should have switched it out for one that didn't bend so much. It would have been easier and taken less time, but my stubbornness kicked in and I stuck with my choice. Now pour your potato mixture into a large casserole dish. I used my 9 by 13 inch baking pan, but you could use any shape or type of casserole dish. Just make sure it's large enough to hold all of your mixture. My pan was pretty full. Distribute the mixture evenly in your pan and smooth the top. Cover your casserole with foil and bake it for about 30 minutes at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. After 30 minutes, your casserole should be completely heated through and bubbly. Remove the foil and sprinkle your cornflake and cheese topping over the casserole. Be careful, it's hot. As you can see, I didn't have quite enough topping for even coverage. Next time I think I'll use 2 cups of cornflakes and 2 cups of cheese. Again, it depends on your taste and the surface area of your casserole dish. Put the casserole back in the oven, uncovered, and bake for an additional 15 minutes, or until the cheese has melted and browned. You may need to use the broil setting on your oven to get the topping a real golden brown. Just watch it carefully, it's really easy to burn the cheese. There are several different ways you can prepare this casserole ahead of time. First, you can assemble your casserole, pour it into your casserole dish, cover and refrigerate it until you're ready to bake it. With this method, you can leave it in the fridge for several days if you need to. Best practice would be to bring the casserole to room temperature before you put it in the oven. This prevents your oven from cooling down too drastically and also prevents you from having to cook the casserole for longer in order to heat it through. The second way is to bake it for the first 30 minutes without the topping on. Keep it warm until right before you need it and then pop it in the oven with the topping for those last 15 minutes. This is especially helpful if you are taking this dish to a potluck or a friend's home where oven space may be limited. Well, there you have it, my favorite potato casserole. I've attached the recipe in the description below. I hope you've enjoyed my video and explanation and that I've inspired you to make this dish for yourself. If you liked my content, comment and let me know. Also, go ahead and subscribe. I have plenty more recipes on the way, as well as other DIY projects and crafts. Be sure to check out my channel trailer to find out what my channel is all about.